Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. Welcome back. And I truly do mean welcome back because we were doing this just not even 24 hours ago. And we are back at it because we are coming up on 2 weeks away from the start of the 2025 NFL draft. And we have ground to cover. We have things to talk about. We got places to be. We got people to see. And we got to do it together. So I am Brendan. That is Brandon. How are you doing today, Brandon?
I'm doing great, man. Inside 2 weeks, and feel like we're just about to the point where the hay's in the barn as far as really looking at these guys exhaustively, and just get you excited because you really got your head wrapped around the draft. It takes a while, but I feel like I'm getting there, don't you?
It doesn't feel real to me yet. It doesn't feel like we're 2 weeks away. That doesn't feel right. But I mean, I know it's obviously true, but it, I don't know. It doesn't feel like it's that close.
It's just if it's felt like it's a. Usually I'm scrambling. That's why I say, Brendan. Usually at this point I'm like I've got 50 prospects in 2 weeks I got to drive through, and this one I feel like I've got them already kind of looked at. So it's like, all right, we're okay.
hmm Yeah. I'm actually pretty ahead of things as well. I think last year I went to the last couple of days to finish up, but not this year.
It's brutal doing that too. Your head starts swimming.
hmm All right. So today we are covering a position that I think is actually pretty interesting in this draft, and I think it's pretty interesting for the Seattle Seahawks. It's not necessarily a position that seems to draw a lot of attention, and it's not a position that Seahawks fans seem to be conditioned to really desire, but it's a position that I think is pretty darn good in this year's draft, and it's the tight end position. I like this class. I think it's actually better than I was expecting before the season started.
Yeah, I believe that it's the strongest class we've probably seen in about 10 years. There may be an outlier class I'm forgetting about, but I think the real important part is that by and large, when you look at tight end class in recent years, it's been so deprived of very much talent, or there'll be like one or two guys and then not a lot else after that point. And this is a unique draft where you actually have a lot of legitimate guys that even into round four could potentially be starters for you at the position. Good all around players at that.
Mm-hmm. All right. So you look at the Seahawks right now. They are covered decently for the tight end position for 2025 if they want to be. They still have Noah Fant and AJ Barner's behind him. And that's not a bad setup, but I'll tell you, there's a part of me that would still like to, if possible, explore the idea of saving that Noah Fant money by maybe getting one of these top tight ends. And maybe the team's already decided they're going to commit to Noah Fant for this last year, but I would not hate the idea of getting one of these top tight end targets and then moving Noah Fant, saving the money, and then rolling that cap space over to next year. That's something that I would still like to pursue personally.
I would as well. I think you're holding on to Fant, but I don't think it's a guarantee he's on the roster and that they wouldn't take a tight end that they look, say, hey, this guy gives us as much or maybe more upside than Fant, and we save that money, and that money's better spent elsewhere or rolled over, like you say. I think it makes a lot of sense. Say nothing for that fact. In addition to this, you don't need a third tight end. You sign the guy to San Francisco there, so you have him on the roster, but definitely, there's a little bit of a potential need here, and just in for that and for fullback, in addition to it, for a guy that maybe can do both. So there's even an additional kind of opening to it there with that as well.
Yeah, and we will talk about that with at least a couple of these guys. A couple of these guys do have that flexibility, which I think is really fun and could be really valuable. But yeah, with that being said, you ready to just go ahead and dive right into these tight ends and see what's up?
Let's do it.
Okay, so our first guy here, this has generally become the consensus top tight end in this draft. Penn State, Nittany Lion. He is a tight end. He's also a running back. He's also a quarterback sometimes. Yes, you heard that right. Tyler Warren. 23 years old when the season starts. He's got good size, about typical size for a tight end. Every big board I look at now has him in the top 26. He's 10th on the aggregate last time I checked. And production last year off the charts, 1,200 receiving yards, 200 rushing yards. So he's putting up the stats. He's helping carry that Penn State offense. But how is it going to work in the NFL for Tyler Warren? What do you think?
I like him. I think he's a real big tight end that gives you real good size, some traditional stuff to him as far as that size goes, but with some actual, maybe explosiveness, route running that you wouldn't typically get in that kind of package of a player. He also then really gives you the good contested contact kind of situations as far as that goes, where he's really got trustworthy hands and he can be, knocked around and it's not going to matter with him. He'll jump up, he'll go make the grab. Very good ball tracking with him as well. A good overall skill set, a decent, capable blocker. I wouldn't call him dominant in that place, but he's going to give you some good snaps in there. Even at times some good snaps to being in doing some of the inline stuff. I think he's a little bit of a stretch between the two of them in that way, but then he also gives you a real bully mentality with the ball in his hands after the catch. Can be a little bit agile as well to get around tacklers in space after the catch and really extend things. You mentioned to him taking those direct snaps, which is a big thing that jumps out to me with him, where you have a couple hundred yards rushing from the tight end position. I mean, I can't think of a guy, but maybe going back to a guy like Aaron Hernandez, who literally was like taking running back snaps in the backfield as a tight end. It's a very rare type of ability to be able to do that and not to be undersold. I mean, he's got one play this year, Brendan, where he does the old Walter Payton jump over the line of scrimmage from the 3-yard thing that you see from those hyper explosive backs, where you're just, oh my God. But the guy's the full meal deal as a player for the position. I think the top end for him has been a little bit overstated. There's Gronk comparisons here. At this point, I do believe that he's probably going top 8 in this draft based on what I'm reading. And I think that is a little bit too rich for me on that side of it. I can understand if the Seahawks have made the pick at 18 because of how much hype and how much draw he's getting talked about in that way. But I just felt like as well, I don't think he's a supremely pure excellent mover for the position as far as being hyper explosive and hyper agile. I don't think he's got kind of the wiggle and shake of a Brock Bowers who, went like 12th last year or something. And I think that was a better
13th, I think.
Yeah, I just think he was a better overall receiver and brought just better overall cumulative skill as a receiver at that point. Warren's maybe a little bit better of a blocker, but that's where it gets hard for me with that, where I can't quite elevate him as high as others are on that, where I don't quite see the vision there. But where do you stand with him?
I think he's probably a top 10 player in this draft for me. I think he's deserving of going in that top 10. I'm a big fan. He's got great hands. He moves well. He doesn't have great downfield speed. I know you said you didn't think he was a great mover at the tight end position. I do agree that he's not a big time downfield threat the way that some tight ends could be. I really like the way he shifts gears when he's going through his routes. It's that ability to kind of shake up your pacing in a way to throw the defense off. He's a great route runner, good contested catcher. He's a good, I don't think he's a great blocker. I think he's a pretty good blocker overall. Can line up everywhere. He lines up in the slot, lines up wide, lines up in line, lines up in the backfield. And I think he's got a great drive to be great. I see that desire on his part to just whatever it takes to help my team win, I'm willing to do it. I do think physical defenders can take him out of the game a little bit sometimes. Like I said, not great downfield speed, some improvements to make as a blocker. So I really do like him. I think that maybe he won't be one of the best tight ends in the game, but I think when you add in the value that he's going to provide in other areas, like the backfield stuff, and maybe even the trick play stuff, I think he threw like 6 passes last year for Penn State. They like to use him on those trick plays. I don't think we're going to have a chance to get him. I think he's going to be long gone by the time we get to 18, and I think he deserves it. So I'm a little higher on him than you are. I don't see the Gronk stuff, but the Gronk stuff, that's just never really going to happen again. Gronk was basically a 6th offensive lineman out there. You're not going to see that anytime soon, but I do think that Tyler Warren is worthy of being a top 10 player in this draft.
Yeah, he's a fun player, and I'm certainly way lower on him than just about everybody else is in that way. So I probably have this one a little bit wrong, and I like him, just don't quite like him into that range of where he's due to go with it. But I think he's going to be a very good player. You got a good safe floor with this guy, in addition to having some ceiling he offers to you. Mm-hmm. And yeah, you'll be able to find a way to get him touches. You'll be able to find a way to get productivity from this guy one way or the other.
All right, so next man up here is going to be another projected first round tight end, and I'll tell you, there's been some whispers that there might be a little bit of interest between the Seahawks and this guy. It's Colston Loveland of the Michigan Wolverines. Colston Loveland going to be 21 when the season starts, 6'6", 248, so a little bit leaner than Warren. Longer arms, though. That's kind of always notable and interesting when you talk about guys like this. Every big board that I use has him in the first round. Didn't have monster production in college, but there were some pretty good reasons for that. 2023, he was on a team that ran the ball as much as anybody and also had a lot of just all-around talent on that offense. There was only one football. And last year, he didn't really have a quarterback, so it's understandable. But what do you feel about Colston Loveland as he goes to the pros?
Yeah, another guy where I just don't quite find myself as hot to trot as others are with him. He's certainly skillful, and there's certainly stuff he's going to bring to the table. That's no doubting. I've got a player comp of kind of like a Zach Ertz on him, is how I see him as kind of a player. Fluidly agile H-back, top end hands, route running for the position. I mean, the guy really does move well and understands how to avoid physicality through the second level of the defense. A lot of tight ends get hung up. We're talking about a guy or two here. They're like magnets when they're running through the second level, where they just about run into the freaking defender, looking to run into the defenders versus avoiding and staying full speed and getting up the field and climbing like you should. Like you said, he has long, wide catch radius, soft hands. He's adept at extending and high pointing the ball in addition to having those long arms. So long arms don't do you any good if you can't extend and go get the catch in addition to that. And he's really good on 50-50 kind of balls. Body contortion and control to catch the ball out away from his body and secure it. Like I said, upper level route runner. He's got toe tap, drag, swag. He's a good off script improviser into secondary routes. There's no doubt, Brendan, that when it comes to him on a linebacker, even at the pro level, he will be a mismatch in those kind of situations. No doubt about that. Let's just get to the thing that, as I think everyone really understands with him, what it is about him that's drawing people in. But let me just kind of speak to the specific items if I can hammer in on it, because I went back and watched tape of him last night, and it was kind of funny, Brendan, watching the tape last night, hearing the telecast of when they're talking. They're talking about how he goes and makes this big catch on a 50-50 ball. The telecast is talking about, we were sitting with special teams coach Jay Harbaugh this last week, and he just out of nowhere said, let me turn the film on of Colston Loveland. Check this guy out. And I'm like, Harbaugh's in there pounding the table. And it's literally, they're saying that AJ Barner's coming over and giving him a hug, by the way, as he's saying that on the field. I was like, oh, this feels kind of like kismet.
Yeah. Who cares what Jay Harbaugh wants? He shouldn't even be here right now anyway.
I know, man. But here's where these are the things that really collectively come together for me on Colston that give me hesitancy when it comes to him in the first round. His blocking is below average at best. It's maybe not glaring. It might even be glaringly bad. It's below average at best. That's as good as I can kind of put it, I think there. He's not particularly strong. So just some of this, he's just so light. He's like a heavy receiver being thrown around by bigger men when he tries to go down there and block down where it gets dirty down there. That's where I don't have as much then hope that that's going to be a correctable thing for him at the next level. I think he's always going to be probably a little bit light and have a hard time with that. Next issue is Yak. Though he'll get up the field fast, he's got no moves or wiggle or shake. He's got not even really a lot of real vision on extending the run. He'll just kind of go straight up the field and just try to go get as much yards as he can at the reps. So you got no Yak. Next issue, a lot of his production is off misdirection, a trick play, him starting to block and then him leaking out down the field and the defense caught off guard thinking it's an actual run play because so much of the Michigan offense, of course, is running the ball. And so it's not a lot of him always purely just getting open with the route running out on the field on his production. It's a kind of this manufactured stuff. I feel this a little bit with Arroyo as well out of Miami, where it's just a lot of this like bubble screens and just over, not a lot of you just purely getting open as a route, creating separation in that way. Last issue, shoulder injury took him out last year. He's kind of a slight guy. I'm a little bit worried on that angle of it, especially for a guy that wasn't used to a hellacious degree in college, like a Warren over 100 catches or like a the kid out of Bowling Green that went over 100 catches himself.
Fannon.
Yeah, Fannon. And so it's not like that as well. And so you put the collective of all this together, it still, for me, holds him as a second round prospect, but I think it should be enough to ding him out of the first round, in my opinion. It won't, but that's why I'm trying to build my case for why I came to where I came to with him.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with all that. He's a pure pass catching tight end. I think that I think he might be a big negative as a blocker. He might be one of those tight ends that just does not block really at all. He's got a lean body type. That limits what you can do, really. Maybe he can add weight, but then you're giving up other stuff. doesn't really shift gears when running routes. I've noticed he is a good route runner. I feel like he needs to learn how to shift gears. He's always going at 100 miles an hour, which sometimes is not what you want to do as a route runner. You want to vary up your pacing a little bit. I do like how he handles press coverage. A lot of these college players don't know what to do when they get pressed, but Loveland, I think, beats it pretty well. So I was a little frustrated with him as well. I did end up putting him in the first round, but just barely. He's like 31 or ish for me, 31, 32, somewhere around there. And the fact that he's one-dimensional as a player does make me not really want him very much at all at 18. I'll say that.
Yeah. Especially when there's not the yak, right? I mean, if you're one-dimensional as a pass catcher, that's great. But then be a kind of a yak artist in addition to being the pass catcher, and I can make up for the lack of the blocking. But when you are just, I make the catch, I fall down guy, not to be taking that at 18 in the first round, no matter how good you are at getting open, making catch, fall down, still kind of limited. And I don't want to be taking limited players with first round picks.
Yeah, I don't feel like I need to. I think there's better value out there. I think there are guys that you could get in the second round or even third round that are not that far off.
Agreed. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'll say this, if the Seahawks ended up with a pick at the back end of the first or the top end of the second and got Loveland, I'd be pretty cool with that.
Yeah, it's a bit like it's like the Zabel thing, right? It's like he's a good player. You just want to take the player in the right spot of things. I have him a high second round pick, so right on that nudge line of being a first rounder. So if you take him there, it makes a lot more sense than taking middle of the first. And that's really where this is really pulling from. Is it's just take the guys in the right places where they should go. Don't fall in love with guys and artificially raise them up past where really they should go. And if some other team wants to make that mistake, let them go make that mistake, and you'll go find yourself a better player down the line if they're going to reach in that way.
Yeah. I don't feel like Loveland gets past Denver. That's my guess right now.
Yeah, it's long felt like to me like one that Genty to the Raiders has long felt like the most natural first round fit for any player to any team. But I will say that for whatever reason to me, Loveland to Denver has felt like it makes too much sense.
Mm-hmm. All right. Okay. So those are your two first round projected guys. Now we're going to move on to a second round projected guy. I believe we've got two as of right now. The aggregate shifts constantly, but our first guy is going to be Mason Taylor of LSU, 21 years old, about average size for a tight end, 6'5", 251. Like I said, the big boards mostly put him in the second. Pretty good production last year, 550 yards, 55 catches. Nothing over the top stellar. PFF grade was also kind of forgettable, 67.8. But yeah, Mason Taylor, what's your read here?
I like Mason Taylor quite a lot, and I've got him right nudged up closely with Colston, Loveland. Some similarities between them as players, but both he's got a little bit slightly above average speed and quickness for the position, like Loveland. Strong route runner for the position, a bit like Loveland. Really good in and out of his breaks. I thought that he really does a good job at the stem of his route of not giving it up to the defender and letting him know what he tells and be able to bust that out. The outbreaking routes, especially with him, are real sharp, and he's really able to create some separation on those routes. It stood out in a major way. I think he's above average as a prospect with the ball tracking and attacking the ball in the air, not letting the ball come to you, but going up there and high pointing and grabbing it. Again, where I came back and forth between him and Loveland on this, where I just watch his tape and watch Loveland, and everyone goes, "Oh yeah, Loveland's definitely this number one tight end or first round tight end." And everybody goes, "Well, with Mason Taylor, well, he's a second round guy." And I go, "Man, these guys are way more closer than they're further apart. So shouldn't this mean really Loveland does kind of go more into that second round kind of place of things?" Really soft and steady hands. He's only credited with having one drop on 79 targets this past year. He's like a little bit like a shortstop picking the ball out of the dirt. When he goes low for a big man, he can go take that thing up off the toes and make that catch and go low and grab it. He's got a really good ability to that's that ball tracking thing where, misthrown ball, he can adjust to it quick, get the hands down low, get the body down low, be in a position to go make that catch and reel it in. So those soft hands, that good catching ability also extends out to tough catches. In addition to that is kind of what I'm saying. He doesn't have many moves after the catch, like Loveland again, but he does really do a good job, Brendan, to me, of catching the ball and then turning into a runner almost instantaneously. It's like boom, 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 and he's up the field and he's good to go. Sometimes he's almost a little too aggressive getting up the field. It does get him sometimes torpedoed too much where he's just not expecting the tackle, but you love the effort and what he brings on that. I don't think he gives you too much upside as a run blocker, but he does offer some legit ability as a pass protector, chip blocker, those type of things. He can do that, but there's going to be some limitations to him as a run blocker. That's for sure.
Yeah, I have good athlete. He's got great ball skills, great hands. He's got a big catch radius as well. I think he's going to be a little bit of a downfield weapon as well, even more so than a guy like Warren. He's not afraid of catching through contact, not afraid of contested catches. I think he's a good blocker in the open field. He's just not a good blocker in line, more so. Like, I think if he's trying to take on like edge rushers or bigger linebackers, it's tougher. But if you're asking him to be like a lead blocker down the field, it'll be okay. Oh, you muted?
I felt the same way on that. He's a little bit like Hawes in that way, right? Where Jackson Haw is a really great blocker, but at his best, when you have him kind of moving and then getting into it off the movement, like pre-snap motion to the block, right?
So let's see here. I do think he's got some improvements to make as a route runner. He will have issues playing in line at the NFL level, I think, a little bit. I think he will want to play a lot of his reps in the slot for now. And I feel like he's capable of building separation, but a lot of the times he doesn't. It almost makes me think of Odunsier sometimes, where he just likes contested catches. And sometimes you just want to get open and make the easy catch. It's okay.
It definitely helps. It definitely makes his job easier if you can do that.
Yeah. So I think most of the issues with him are fixable. I think he can learn to become a more complete tight end. And even if he doesn't, I think he's a good receiving weapon. So I'd go middle second round on him. I think he has good upside, and I think there's a pretty good floor as well. I think middle second round's about right.
Yeah, I think that's a great way of putting it. Good floor, offers you some ceiling. Second round's the right place. Also has the lineage of being the son of Jason Taylor, and even his mom, I believe, was an athlete. And so you love having those guys, the guys that have the lineage, and two parents that are both two sport athlete kind of things going on. And he's got that as well. We've seen with the track record, those kind of guys that they don't tend to, but they have a pretty high frequency of success, don't they, Brendan?
Yeah. Jason Taylor was the guy who looks like Xerxes from 300, right?
That's right.
Yeah, I remember him. He was great. He was a
monster
out there.
He was a problem. One of your kind of original extra large ends, like tall wise, it was kind of came at the time where everyone thought you had to be more 6'4", and there was like that mandated size you had to be. Like corners used to have to be 5'11" or under 6 feet. It's like they eventually got destroyed that thinking, but he was kind of one of the people that helped destroy it.
Yeah, it's like the old days of poker. You can never 4-bet pre-flop unless you have aces. And then one day somebody just went, wait, what if I 4-bet and I don't have aces? And then everybody's minds were blown.
Yeah, exactly. You can do that?
All right, we got another second rounder here. We got I think he is our second rounder as of right now. Again, things change all the time. Elijah Arroyo of the Miami Hurricanes, part of their really fun offense from last year. About average size for a tight end. Again, really long arms though, 33-inch arms. Definitely worth noting. He is our first tight end of the day that did combine drills, and he did one, the bench press. So yeah, not a lot of testing from tight ends this year. A lot of them were sitting it out. Really kind of bummed me out. I don't like seeing it. But yeah, aggregate has him as a late second round pick. Only really has 1 year of production, but almost 600 yards, 7 touchdowns. Big play guys. Average 17 yards per catch. So what do you think of Elijah Arroyo?
This is the guy that I'm going to be probably I am as cold on as any tight ends that we're going to look at today, for where they are, for where they should go, in my opinion. I've got a late 4th round grade on him. He's an athletic tight end, solid route runner for the position, good cuts at the stem of his route, explosive up the field. He's got solid hands for the position too, and he does a good job with the late hands. Doesn't always, he'll sometimes trick defenders by waiting to pull those hands up to go reel in the catch until kind of last minute, which does help him out a lot. Really good understanding of where to find cracks in zone coverage and where to sit down. I like that part of it as well. He's got good quicks, but I do not think he's got anything but maybe average speed, which quicks are what you really want to lean to the tight end more than speed, but it'd be nice to have both. He's a willing blocker that is missing some needed play strength to get the best out of his technique, though he does have pretty good technique. It does seem like he was dealing with some lower leg injuries that could be kind of muddling his tape through last year, where through the early part of the year wasn't fighting through those injuries, maybe started to get a little bit healthier as the year went along, a little bit better. Half of his routes were as a slot wide receiver. I believe like about 56% of his slot. I believe he has some more snaps as well, lined out wide. So this is a guy to me that's really more of a receiver more than he's really a tight end, and watching him on tape to me. I talked to you about the premeditated stuff. I think he's got more premeditated stuff in his production this year than any tight end we're going to look at in this draft. And that's kind of important too when you think about the fact that he only has 1 year of actual production. So what I think is going on with Elijah Arroyo, in my opinion, is okay, the long arms, the size, the fact that he goes out there and tears up the Senior Bowl. I think these are weighing more heavily on his evaluation than really going back and looking at the tape of what he really brought to the field and what he is as a player, in my opinion.
I'm actually with you. I have him as a round 4 guy as well. I wasn't a big fan of this. He's got good hands, not afraid of getting physical. I think he's really good at reading zone defenses and sitting down in the hole in the zone and waiting for the ball. I think he's a willing blocker. I don't know if he's a good one, but I do think he's willing. And I think he gives effort. He's just not a very good athlete to me. I watch him play, and I feel like he's just not that good of an overall athlete. And he's not a very good route runner either. I think his greatest strength is really just finding holes in the zone and sitting down. He's not strong enough to be a truly good blocker. And I don't see a lot here as a run after the catch player personally. I think that he's kind of like Loveland, the way you were saying. There's nothing really going on there. So you've got 1 year production. You've got pretty light athletic traits. I feel like he's going to be like one of those high effort guys that just doesn't have the tools to really make it work. He'll be one of those half decent slot receivers that runs like a 4.7 40, and they just try to barely hang on in the NFL, and the talent's just not there. So I went round 4 on him. I didn't like him very much either.
Yeah, I had in my notes, I didn't mention him, but in also my notes, his yak ability is also limited. So I saw the same thing from that as well. And I don't understand why he's being looked at as a second round player. He's a fine prospect, but that's just, there's so many better players in the second round, even tight ends in the second round you'd be going with than this guy. And I don't quite get it. These kind of guys don't usually go up like this. And I just think that Senior Bowl sometimes catches people's eyes too much. It pulls too much on them, I think.
We've seen it before. Happens all the time.
Yeah, we have.
All right. So that is your final second round guy. This next guy's very close though. And some people may elevate him to the second round. This guy's, as of when I took this data, he was literally the first pick of the third round. So he's right there. Harold Fannon Jr. He is your small school tight end for the year. And you will not find production like this anywhere else. So he's undersized, 6'3", 241. So he's a little bit smaller, but he's fairly athletic in most areas. Had a great 10-yard split. 1, 5, 6, 10-yard split is getting it done all day long. Good vert, good broad, good change of direction. The big boards, like I said, right now it seems to be congregating around the late second, early third. 1,550 yards last year. Also threw in 65 rushing yards. 117 catches. The guy was the Bowling Green offense. But Bowling Green is not the NFL. So what's Harold Fannon doing when he gets to the NFL?
He's one of my favorite prospects in the draft. He's just kind of, we all have our guys, don't we, Brendan, that are just, regardless of Brown, or just your guy. And Harold Fannon Jr. is just my guy. He's built as weird as any tight end in this draft. He's got the Kenny rubbing knees thing going on, Kenny Smith rubbing knees thing going on that the basketball player used to have, or still does have. That's kind of funny. When he runs, it's like a cross country guy in the open field. It looks weird, but he's a yak monster. He's a bull with the ball in his hands. He can both run you over or juke around you. He's got great hands for the position. He can extend. He can jump and high point the ball. There's just so much to like in his game to me. I think the quickness is there. Athleticism is there with him as far as the position. He can go play fullback for you, I think, into this offense and fill that hole and fill that need in Kubiak's scheme and be real dynamic in that way. Minimum, whatever he does tight end, I think he does that minimum if you bring him in. I think he can do tight end stuff as well. But he just built on a strong 2023 with an even better 2024. You love to see the incremental growth in these players when you see it like that. I just really like this guy, and I got to be honest, like you talked about right on that line. I think by the time we get to draft day, I very well might end up bumping him into my late second round. Got him right at the top of the third, but I really have a draw to want to put him into the second.
Yeah, I have him in my third as well. You like him a little bit more than I do, but we're basically on the same wavelength here. Great acceleration. He's got good ball skills, and he's got a little bit of yak, I think. I think this guy's going to be able to do a little more yak than most of these guys. Very few drops. He's good at running his route tree. Got that running back flexibility. I don't know if that's going to work in the NFL, but who knows? I mean, he's got more of it than most of these guys. I do fear he might be a little bit of a straight line athlete. I do fear that most of his athleticism is straight line athleticism. There are going to be some routes that he just isn't able to run. I think there are pieces of the route tree that will be cut off from him. Physical defenders will give him a lot of trouble because he is smaller, and playing in line might be hard because he is smaller. He is going to have to work very hard to overcome that. I think he can do it, but there is going to be a learning curve there. So he's unconventional, and it was really hard for me to figure it out. I ended up going third round on him too, though, because I do think that some of the playmaking stuff will translate very well.
I do as well. And third round will be my minimum on it. I just, I was telling you this before, I know, but it's just, Brendan, and looking at history of these tight ends that have been really good tight ends that have become, kind of those unique cats that have been separators at the position. They're a little bit like running backs, and they come in all different shapes and sizes. It's not a mold type that goes out there and lights the world on fire. Instead, it's like they're the different types of guitarists, and that's the way it is to me with tight ends. And when I look at Fannon, and we have a lot of tight ends in this draft that do fit to a bit of a mold type. With him, he's kind of a break the mold kind of guy. And when not saying I'm predicting greatness or anything with him, but the guys that have reached to greatness for the position have had those kind of awkward, unusual kind of ways their game operates versus everybody else. And he's got that going for him, in my opinion.
Yeah, I do like him. And I'm not too worried about the level of competition he faced at Bowling Green. I think that if you have tight end skills, you have tight end skills, and it's a little bit easier to tell versus other positions whether or not you're going to be able to hang.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the level of competition is a factor here too with it as well. It is a bit, but he's just, to me, was so good. The tape's just too good.
Right. Let's see here. Okay, so we got one more guy that is projected as a day 2 tight end. We have this guy who really proved his toughness at the combine. I'll say that, right? Because he went out there and he made himself look pretty bad there for a little while there, and he was willing to do that just to go ahead and gut it out. It's Gunnar Helm or Gunnar Helm, or I don't know. It's spelled Gunnar. What do you want from me? That's what it looks like. That's how he spells it.
Yeah, well, I like Gunnar. He's I do have him in the third round as well. Comp for him as a Dalton Schultz. I think he's a bit of a mixture between inline and H-back, soft hands plus yak. At the forefront of his game is receiving. A nice bounce step off of his release. I really like how he comes off the line of scrimmage and just eats up space with those long strides. And really that first step or two, he's really, really putting it on those linebackers and challenging them right out the gate, putting them in a bit of a pickle there, and sometimes getting them to panic a little bit in there with him when he eats up that much space on them, when he kind of catches them off guard. He could be the awkward position and still make the catch, still kind of twist his body back around, find his hands, get up there, go make it. Really extremely low drop rate on this guy. Again, he's missing some explosiveness, juice, and twitch. So the testing times got to be understood because of the fact that you've got the rolled ankles, the big part of that. But he's also was not going to necessarily test insane either. I think that's a part of this. He's a work in progress as a blocker. He's better in pass pro, chipper than he is run blocking, like one of the other guys we're talking about a little bit with that. Some reps are letter perfect. Others, he just gets easily tossed aside. So it's kind of just hot and cold with him as a blocker to me on that side of it. Only one really good year of production coming out of college, but I just love the catch radius, ability to extend like Colston a little bit, where he's going to maximize out the long arms, maximize out how high he can go up and go get that ball. A real tough catcher, real tough contact contested catcher as well. In addition to that, I thought he brought out just a solid all around kind of game. And, you miss out on a guy like a Warner or Loveland, you come back around third round with a guy like this wouldn't be the worst of consolation prizes. Yeah,
I think he's a third rounder as well. I'm not worried about the combine. And, it's pretty easy to figure out why he had that combine, so I'm not tripping on it. I like his ability to use power to grind out extra yards, even though he's a little lean. I think that he was pretty good at making sure he would fall forward and get those extra 2 yards. He's got great hands. He's a good route runner for the routes that he runs, and I think he can run most of the route tree. He's a capable blocker. I think he can get better too, especially if he adds weight, and he has the frame for it. He's 6'5", 241. He can add weight if he wants to. And think about the guys he's competing with for catches at Texas. He's got 2 receivers that are going to go in the top 100, including a guy who's probably a first-round pick, and he still had 800 yards almost last year.
Yeah, and Jadon Blue is going to get his share of touches in that offense along with it. To your point on that as well.
And Texas usually plays with a lead, so they're running the ball a lot more, and still, this guy produces.
Yeah, I put a comp on him for Dalton Schultz. You like that?
Yeah, I could dig that. Dalton Schultz, I could definitely see that. Again, you're right. He wasn't going to test great regardless, but he could have. Shoot, damn it! I lost my train of thought. We've been doing these shows for how many years now, and it's like the first time I've ever lost my train of thought. Darn it!
That's a lot of prospects.
Yeah, but let's see here. I do think there's a little bit of a learning curve for him going from the Longhorns offense to the NFL one, but I would put him in the 3rd round, and I wouldn't even hate him in like the earlier part of the 3rd round. I think that he is going to be good. I'm excited for him. I think that he can improve in a lot of the areas where he's not so well rounded yet. Like a lot of easy catches in that Texas offense, I will admit, and he's not going to get those in the NFL.
No, he's not. He got enough to me. There was enough mixed in there where he was running routes and doing stuff that like you say, I think he's got the capability to do it. And I think that he's going to have some improved upside as a pro. There's a legit upside as a pro and what he brings. He's getting a bit, I think, lost in the shuffle in this draft a little bit because of the 2 top guys and your Fannons and Arroyo rising up like a bullet here at the last moment. I think that's got this guy kind of, along with the combine thing, has had him sort of get forgotten about a little bit.
All right, so now we are going to swing on down to the day 3 projected tight ends. So we're not going to talk at length about all of these guys, but I did take a look at quite a few day 3 projected guys. And a few of these guys I think we got to go deep on because I do think they are pretty valuable to look at, and I do think there's some real interest. Like, for instance, this first guy, some people have argued this guy should be the 3rd tight end in this class. Terrence Ferguson of the Oregon Ducks. Pretty good size, pretty good arm length, tested really well, fast, quick, explosive. Currently projected as an early 4th rounder coming off 2 pretty productive years at Oregon, over 1,000 yards combined. So how you feeling about Mr. Ferguson?
He's a yak H-back to me. And the yak and the run after the catch is really the centerpiece of where his game starts from. Really was frequently used in screen situations, clear outs, or just finding a short route where they could throw him the ball a couple of yards past the line of scrimmage and then let him go to work. He quickly gets violent after the catch, using his arm as a spear to force knock tacklers off of him. His yak really comes from good contact balance and how he really finishes runs. I think that the important part with him is that he is really clunky as a route runner. There is a lot of wasted motion. There is a lot of wasted steps. He has a weird habit. This is the guy I was telling you about too, that has this weird habit of magnetizing towards defenders as he's running through the secondary. You're running through the secondary and you watch a guy like Loveland or Warren and they have a guy standing there on the seam. Those guys will bounce around that guy on the seam, right? You bounce laterally and then you get upfield up around the seam of the guy. What he'll literally do is just kind of run into that guy and then kind of try to go back up the seam after he runs into him. But there's so many times on tape watching him, and this is the guy I went back last night just to confirm some of this again, where he's just like he's a bowling ball trying to knock out bowling pins sometimes in the second level with the route running versus avoiding contact, keeping your speed, keeping your pace, keeping moving forward through the course of your route. You get stopped in your route by these defenders, it's not good. So I've got some big concern with him as far as a route runner goes. He's better catching the ball. He's really good at catching the ball falling down or reaching low or reaching away from his frame. Very good understanding of where to sit down in zone, when to come to stop, when to keep rolling. I do like how he blocks. I think he's above average for position. We've talked about a lot of guys that are kind of struggling a little bit or a work in progress. I think he's a little bit more further along in that part of things. Technically really good on top of just getting the job done, I thought. But there are just a few average skills and abilities that I think he brings that don't really separate him. I think he's got average speed, average quickness, average route running, average hands, average catch radius. You just draft this guy to get the ball in his hands and let him go to work, I think. And that's fine. And he'll be good with that. And he can have some impact with that. But I don't think you're going to be able to just line him up, have him go run routes and expect that he's going to go get open.
Yeah. I wrote down in my notes as well, clumsy route runner. So I definitely noticed that as well. I do like his speed. I do like his acceleration. He's going to get downfield in a hurry. He should be able to be a good blocker based on his body type. He's not yet. He's got a lot to work on there. He's got good ball skills, 3 seasons of good production, big catch radius, but very little to I don't know about his physicality as well. I don't know about him in contested catch situations. And that Oregon offense, like there's some easy stuff you do with that offense. Like they make life easy for you as a tight end there. You're just getting free releases and wide open spaces over the middle all day. So there is some upside here. I think 4th rounder is about appropriate here, but he's got a lot of stuff he's got to fix to get to the point where he's going to be a really good NFL tight end.
And I just don't trust that route running is really going to come that much far forward. So you're right. It still brings something without that because he is just so good with the yak. And I think he will develop as a blocker. But I just come back to like that route running to me is just a little bit too tough to watch to expect it's going to really come forward.
Where would you take him?
He's a 4th. He's the top of the 4th round guy for me too.
Yeah.
The yak is something you can work with and probably a guy that can probably do some fullback stuff with that yak ability, right? Like, can I give him the ball from fullback? Can I have him block from the fullback position? Probably. I can have him do that if I needed to. But I think I can still find effectiveness out of him, but that's effectiveness you find in the 4th round, not effectiveness you have to seek out day 1 or 2.
Mm-hmm. All right. Next guy is also projected to be about a 4th rounder. It's coming off a very close to national championship winning season. Mitchell Evans of the Fighting Irish, 22 years old, got pretty good size, almost 260 pounds, 6'5". Combine was mixed. His drills were mixed. He's got good speed, but very little explosiveness. So what's your take on Mitchell Evans?
Guys mainly H-back, can do some inline stuff. Another guy that if you lose out on Tyler Warren and you're looking for a guy like that's got some similarities to their game, this is a guy that's got not as good, but your consolation prize kind of stuff. He's not going to wow you with burst or speed or quickness or change of direction. You know, when he's heading up the field, his gait is going to make it almost look like he's running uphill. But he was really effective as a player. It's just that he looks a little bit not like some of these guys look really great on tape with their athleticism and how they move. You know, he's got like an ironing board going up his back when he runs. You know, it's little stiff there. But despite these limitations, I do think he's a fine prospect. He just finds a way to get open. He can reel it in, tracks the ball well, even occasionally flashes some late hands, helping him when he can't gain separation. Both as a run blocker and pass blocker, I'd call him functional and willing. He's not moving people off the ball, but he's also not getting blown up. And there's a lot of these guys that we've talked about here that if you watch their tape blocking wise and they're just getting thrown around or they're getting blown back off the ball, he's at least going to get you the stalemate, let's say, as a minimum. He kind of gives you some surprising yak. It's mostly that traditional Hulk smash tight end. I'm just running over people kind of thing. You know, it isn't artful, but it's something that's been the way the traditional tight ends go out and get their yak in NFL history. And that's the way he kind of does it. But he also has a little bit of bounce and some nifty moves with the ball in his hands in addition. So just it gives you a little bit of something all the way around here as a player to me, and a guy that you get in the 4th round.
Yeah, I think it was NFL.com that had his comp as Will Dissly, and I can kind of see that. I think there's a little bit of credibility there. He's got a nice full frame, should be a good blocker, plays through physical defenders as well, not afraid to get physical, got pretty good hands. He's got a good catch radius, mostly because of effort. He's willing to throw himself around to make these catches. He got hurt. He had a big injury in 2023, and he came back from it in 2024, which you always like to see. So you know he's pretty much back from that. Pretty good route runner. I do think press kind of gives him trouble. Has to clean up some blocking technique. I think it's all fixable, though. I think that you can teach him to be a really good blocking tight end. He's gotten injured more than once in his college career, though. It is worth noting that he's had issues staying healthy, which I I guess that would be another thing he kind of has in common with Will Dissly, because Dissly had a lot of that. I don't think he's a big yak threat. I think you're right that he does kind of find creative ways to do it with his power. I wouldn't call him a yak threat, but I would say that it's a little bit better than some of these other guys.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. So I actually liked Evans quite a bit. I had him as a 4th rounder as well. Possession receiver, chain mover, who's also a good blocker. There's room in the NFL for guys like this all day. So I would definitely take him in the 4th round. And I basically said I'm going to start looking his way right after we get out of the top 100. So I'm good in the early 4th, even if that's what you feel like it takes.
Safe pick. A guy had some really, really nice testing times in the combine as far as the short area burst stuff goes, which is what you really want to lock onto with tight ends. The 40 is nice, but it's really, 10-yard split and how's the shuttle and how's the 3-cone, because that's what those guys are going to be doing by and large with their movement. And he's really good on those all the way down the line. So fairly safe 4th round pick if you take it and what you're getting. You're getting the good floor with this guy, no doubt about that.
Mm-hmm. All right. This next guy I find to be one of the more straightforward players in this draft class, Jackson Haw of Georgia Tech. Pretty good size, pretty decent size. Testing was, again, relatively mixed. He's slow, but relatively quick. He's got a decent amount of explosion. The aggregate has him in the early 5th round, and he's got almost no receiving production in his college career. So what makes Jackson Haw's tick?
His blocking is in it, to put it the short and the long way. It's going to be his blocking that's going to really be able to be what separates him as a player. He's an old school type of tight end. He's a bit to me like Tip Ryman was last year coming out of Illinois. Big body, can move people off the ball. He's not going to generate much separation as a receiver, but I did find that overall he'll catch the ball. There is a little bit of people find a drop here or there on him here with the tape, but the guy's targeted 21 times. And so it's a sample size of stuff there. They're not utilizing him in that way that much. I don't think that necessarily means he has bad hands per se when it's that low as far as the amount of times he actually has been targeted. I do think he is functional as a pass catcher. Not where he's going to really make his money, but I think he's good enough in that way. I don't think he's a complete, utter negative. But a little bit of the quickness with the short area. It's not going to have the speed. Route running is average for the position, in my opinion. It's just that I think he's the best blocking tight end in this draft. And specifically, if this is a guy where you're looking to go get a fullback, that you want to get a guy who can block on the move, that can go clear linebackers out in the B gap when they're meeting the linebackers, or go move and block in space. Not only is the best blocking tight end in this draft, he's the best blocking tight end on the move. I need him to go here and get upfield there. He hits the block. He drives the guy out of the hole. It's letter perfect. It's technique perfect, in my opinion. He's not mauling you like a rabid bear. He's just soundly blocking his man with a great base, perfect handwork, and leg drive. He's comfortable hitting these blocks in line, but he's just lethal when he's moving. And I really like that attribute he brings. It stands out. You don't see guys that can do this very often at the college level in that way. I know it's blocking that doesn't get a lot of people excited, but in this offense, there's room for it. And you put him out in 2 tight end sets with the other guy on their side, you might be able to really, especially going at defenses that might be a little light or susceptible, might be able to get after him at that point.
Yeah, and when I look around the NFL right now, I find myself frustrated with how few good blocking tight ends there are. So we could use a few more.
Yeah, we could. You're going to run a lot of 12 personnel, and whether he's at a fullback or he's just that second tight end to help, be a blocker in there, I think he's going to bring that. And I do think I'm a little bit higher than others are on the pass catching. We have a history of pass catchers coming out sometimes, Brendan, where people put the label on them like this. I've seen in the past. This happened to, for instance, George Kittle as well, or even maybe a Will Dissly. Well, it's like, well, he wasn't used much. Well, he had no catches. Well, he wasn't. There's no productivity there, so he just can't do it. And it's all about utilization. And if college football programs aren't throwing to their tight ends and they just want him to block, well, then you can't really say then that guy's just can't catch the ball or he offers nothing as a pass catcher. It's just that he wasn't utilized in that way. And I think it's more of that to me with Jackson than it is that he can.
Yeah. I do think his blocking alone makes him valuable. He's got really good technique already when it comes to like hand placement and leverage. He can play on the move. I just don't think he's a very good athlete, and I don't think he's much of a route runner. So I do think you're getting very little there, but that's okay. Maybe he'll just be a chain mover. And, there's nothing wrong with that. There's a place in the world for that. So I'd go late 4th or early 5th, I think. And that might be a little overzealous, but I don't think it is.
I don't think it is either. There's the reason that you said it's there's not a lot of these guys right now in the league that are really good blockers. You find a lot more of the pass catching tight ends right now in the league in the way that this has gone. A lot of the tweener type guys, more than anything else. So,
all right. This next guy, now we're starting to get into the guys that I think are just a little bit, at least some of these guys, not all of them, but some of them are a little bit harder to imagine finding success in the NFL for one reason or another. Like, for instance, Jake Briningstool of Clemson, very lean. He's 6'6", but 241. He could add weight if he really wanted to. He's probably going to need to, but he still has very short arms and he has baby hands. He is Kenny Pickett at the tight end position. Truly not a great combine either. Mixed results overall, not very fast, not very explosive. Aggregate has him in the 5th round. He has produced pretty well in that Clemson offense the last couple years, over 1,000 yards and 12 touchdowns combined over the last 2 years. But Jake Briningstool, do you think he's got an NFL future?
I don't. I think if you're going to be this glorified wide receiver, basically operating out of the slot, running tight end routes, like Ferguson was, you got to be a kind of a yak monster, or you got to be really fast. Like you said, he didn't necessarily test very well, but he spent over half of his snaps aligned as a slot or a wide receiver. He can really bounce out of the stem of his routes when making cuts, but some of that's benefiting from being so light when he's making those cuts going up against defenders who just can't move in the same way. I don't know if that's going to happen at the pro level as much in the way that fits. Solid hands, ability to extend after the catch, crafty with the yak. He finds creative ways to extend the run. He's spunky and gets after it as a blocker. He just doesn't have the size to move guys. He's just going to get thrown around because of that. And I don't think there's a lot of size for him to go out there and gain. But technique, will to finish is definitely there as a blocker. I think if he was a couple of inches shorter, he'd be kind of interesting as a potential fullback, but it's 6'6". It's just, he's in tweener land. He's not quite wide receiver. He's not quite tight end. And I think that this is going to probably cause him to, when it's all said and done, kind of just wash out. I got him in the late 5th round, but I don't, you're going to have to use him in a real specific way to find effectiveness with him, I think.
Yeah, I do appreciate how hard a worker he is. He tries really hard to get the most out of that lean body. Good at the catch point. He's got good hands. I like the way he sits down against zone, and he's willing to make contested catches, but I can't imagine a lot of that works out in the NFL the way that people are hoping. He's not really a deep threat at all. He's mostly just an underneath guy, not athletic enough to beat man coverage. He's probably going to get out leveraged a lot when trying to block because he's so tall and lean. So I ended up putting him in the 6th round. I just couldn't quite I just couldn't quite go higher than that. I ended up going 6th.
Yep, I definitely could see myself knocking him in the 6th. I don't have a lot of faith in that guy with this player model type. I don't think we've got a lot of guys that are success stories. They're usually going to be a lot faster if they're coming in this lean.
Mm-hmm. Right. 4.75 is not going to quite cut it.
No,
the tiny arms.
Yeah, and the hands.
Yeah. First percentile hands for tight ends. Percentile,
which matters. You kind of need those things, And a lot of you look at a guy like Gronk, and he's catching the ball, and it's like he's got 2 pillows on his hands catching the thing. The things are so big. Mm-hmm. Mr. Banana hands.
I will say, I think AJ Barner actually has really tight ends, has small hands too, and he's able to overcome it. So it's not impossible, but
it's true. Yeah.
Okay, next guy is fun. Next guy we might need to spend a second on here. Jaylen Conyers of Texas Tech, 24 years old when the season starts. He's pretty nice compact frame. He's not very tall, but he's 260. Good arm length. Tested decently, I'd say overall. I think you're pretty happy with his testing scores overall. Running a 4.74 at 260 pounds is good. Big boards mostly put him in about the 5th round on average. Production hasn't been over the top great, but he does provide a certain versatility to his game. He also gets a lot of carries in the run game. So Jaylen Conyers, kind of a fun little jack of all trades. Can he figure it out at the NFL level?
Yeah, I think he will be mainly a fullback at the NFL level. He's going to go to some Shanahan, whether it's us or somebody else, probably a Shanahan acolyte kind of team that uses the fullback heavily. He's really wide. He's got that natural fullback build to him of old school that you'd used to like quite a bit. tough, hard-nosed kind of player too, so that fits in well with being the fullback. He's not the fastest or the most explosive, but he can change direction, which shows up a little bit in his route running and really shows up on his run after the catch. Good contested catch and yak guy. In addition to that, not going to create a ton of separation on the route running. Route running is just okay. I thought he really did come forward as a blocker in both run and pass protecting situations this year in a nice way. But just the kind of guy that just feels like a fullback fit. He's got a little bit of the Kyle Juszczyk kind of vibes to me as a player a little bit. A guy the Seattle Seahawks have met with as well. So there's some general interest on their part. Good long arms on him, 33 plus inch long arms to allow him a little bit bigger catch radius on that side. But I like this guy quite a bit for the Hawks, especially as a day 3 guy that you can come in and fill what is going to be a vital need to this team that they don't have currently, unless you think John Rhys Plumlee is the guy. And I like him. He's fun.
Yeah, there's a lot going on here. He's a utility player, a true offensive utility player, dangerous with the ball in his hands, good ball skills to find throws in the air, pretty good athlete for his size as well. I want to stress that. And I think he looks faster on the field than he does based on his 40 time, honestly. Not a very good route runner, needs to improve his route running a little bit here. Doesn't really get open quickly. I don't think he's quick enough to really break open in a flash. Some blocking technique stuff needs to get a little bit better. So it's really all about his mindset once he makes the NFL. But I think there's a lot to like about him. I love his versatility. I love the fact that he's going to be able to do different things. I love the fact that he is so well built. Like he's 6'3.5", but he's 260 pounds. Very well built. I wouldn't even hate spending like a 4th round pick on him, honestly.
I wouldn't hate. I mean, day 3, I don't get mad about reaching for need to day 3 as much anymore. But I can get where John comes from if he does that, and it is a need. And the thing with Conyers is that there's not a lot of fullback types in this draft. It's kind of Harold Fannon and Conyers and
yeah. You don't think Jackson Haw's?
Haws can do it too. Haws can do it. Let's throw Haws in there too. So, I mean, but that is it. Those are the 3 guys that can play fullback at these tight ends in this draft. So if you're going to go and reach on a guy like that for this, that is going to be a pure fit to what you need and brings the full skill set into bear. He's even takes carries. Like he took carries out of the backfield for him, even down near the goal line for Texas Tech. So he's even got a little bit of some fullback type snaps you've got on his body as far as that goes and showing that ability there. So I like him more in the 5th round value standpoint, but day 3, I'm not a quibbler on taking a guy around early in day 3.
Yeah. Okay. So this next guy, I think we're going to get through real quickly here because the shine's off the apple here. Benjamin Yurosek. I think he started at Stanford, but then they kicked him out when they realized he wasn't like 7 feet tall because that's the only tight ends that they like in Stanford.
I thought it's because he got paid late at Georgia.
Well, I mean, that helped too, but Stanford only likes their freak, gigantic redwood tree tight ends for some reason.
That's true. Well, that's where the redwoods are, aren't they? In the Northern California.
Yeah, that's true. So transferred to Georgia and didn't really do that much. Didn't even get invited to the combine. So he's kind of fallen pretty far here. I remember when this guy was getting some hype a couple years ago. Really hasn't produced much for 2 straight years. His best season was 2022. Is there anything left to say about Yurosek at this point for you?
I'm thrown off. I really liked his tape last year with Stanford going to Georgia and was really having high hopes this guy was going to take that step forward because he provides a lot of stuff of some of the guys we look in this draft, from a Mason Taylor to a Gunnar Helm. If you go back and watch the Stanford tape, there's a lot of that ability you see from him on the Stanford tape. But it just never really came forward in the major way. Like you said, best year was one of his early years there in college and then didn't really come forward. And that's a warning sign if a player's not really developing. This past year, I don't know how much to hold him to account on that. You're going to a new college program. It's probably a little bit of why you tell some of these guys to don't bounce around so much for the NIL money type stuff. Maybe stay in one spot where you can put your shine on its best to be that prospect. But he's really good as a pass catcher, at least at Stanford, stayed glued to the ball in flight. He can extend. He can be knocked around and still make the grab and be falling down, and just a really tough, rugged player at Stanford in those situations where it would be those real high leverage kind of catches. But went to Georgia and didn't live very little. Some of us, I wonder about too, Brendan, when looking at these Georgia, be it him or let's say an Arian Smith, the wide receiver, when we're looking at their evaluation, how much do we build up into that? How poor the quarterback play was for Georgia this past year. I mean, and shouldn't that measure a little bit? So I struggle with him a little bit in that way, and that you're right, and that his star is really dimmed. But could be a guy that you find that's a little bit of a late round gem, who got kind of screwed in his final year there at Georgia, and that's really impacted his stock heavily.
Yeah, the thing that I still like about him that I think is credible is he's got pretty good speed. He's going to be good in the open field. He's going to be a vertical threat that a lot of these tight ends are not. He has some upside as a blocker in space, I think, even though he's kind of small. I think maybe he could be a lead blocker out at the second level. Catches in traffic pretty well. Should be able to handle a variety of alignment assignments at the next level. I just wouldn't. I don't think he's quick. I think he's more fast than he is quick. He's got build-up speed. Gets pushed around by physical defenders because he is kind of small. Bull rushers are just going to blow right past him because he doesn't have the strength to hold up an anchor. Production for the last couple of years has been so weak. It's just I don't know. I ended up going kind of 6th round pick here too. I don't think you need to go any higher than that after 2 straight years of him not really doing anything. I think there's a little bit of a little seed of something here, but I just can't get it higher than that.
Yeah, understandable why you put him there. I do go a little more fifth round, but that's just because of really the Stanford tape as much as anything in the weight of it. It's and then I liked what I saw from on that. The blocking, I think he's a real willing blocker, and he does get after it, even though, like you said, the size stuff's fair and valid, but definitely gets to get after it in a really nice way that I like too. So I found him to be a fairly complete potential player if you can tap back into what he was a little bit and what he was showing there at Stanford.
Mm-hmm. All right. Oronde Gadsden II of Syracuse. Another guy I've had my eye on for a couple of years now. What'd you make of Mr. Gadsden II?
Yeah, I think that there's very little reason to spend much time on him. This is another guy that's wide receiver more than he's tight end. So 58% of his snaps last year were out of the slot. 9% of his snaps were lined out wide. So that's 67% of his snaps where he's not aligned either as an H-back or an inline tight end, Brendan.
Mm-hmm. I wrote in my notes, hard to imagine him having any success in line in the NFL. So he's going to be like one of these really oversized wide receivers, which there is a little bit of a track record of those guys being something. But yeah, you're right. There's some fun stuff here, but unfortunately, it's not really looking at him as a tight end.
Yeah, I mean he's got his ability to in break on routes and get open in the middle of the field especially stood out to me. And he's a very good contested catcher, really, really good hands. He gives you nothing as far as yak. Blocking is okay at best, but I was watching the tape and I was like, he's not playing tight end. Now, next snap, he's not playing tight end. Next snap, he's not playing tight end. Next snap, not playing tight end. Then I go over and I look at PFF, and 58% of the time you're in the slot, 9% of the time you're on the outside. You're not an effing tight end. You know what I mean? There's wide receivers we're going to look at in this draft that have probably played more tight end snaps than Gadsden did last year.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of makes me think of Colby Parkinson. I remember looking at Colby Parkinson tape after we drafted him. And every big play he made, he was lined up out in the slot, it felt like. Every single one. Yeah.
And unlike Colby, I don't think that this guy is going to be able to add the weight to become the blocker Colby's kind of become. But even in Colby's case, I mean, he got signed to that deal by the Rams. He's always been a guy to me, in Colby Parkinson, that more got caught up by the NFL in the big thing. And like we heard, Seattle had like a first round grade on him when they got him in the 4th round. And the Rams gave him this big contract. I feel like he's one of those players the NFL gets kind of overrates a little bit, not highly, but just a bit. Like they look at him a little bit better than he actually really is. And I can see the same thing with a guy like Gadsden.
Yeah, he's one of those guys they don't lose faith in, even though they have every reason to. It's like it's kind of what Bill Belichick said about Sam Darnold last year. I remember he was talking about how these NFL talent evaluators love Sam Darnold. They don't care how bad he plays. They don't care how much things don't go well for him. They believe he's good and he's going to find a way because they just see something they really, really like with him, and they're never going to give up on him.
Well, to your point, I know the Rams were disappointed in that Colby Parkinson contract last year, and you'd think, okay, didn't perform up to what you thought. You're not liking it. You got your guy back this year off the ACL, which is why you signed Colby in the first place, their other tight end. But then they didn't release him this offseason, right? Like, maybe he'll come around next year. I mean, it's, okay, you had the first tough year, but we'll just give him another into next year. I'm sure it'll click in by then.
Right. Let's see here. Dogzilla, thank you for the $2 super chat. Please have some fun talking nose tackle Desmond Watson. Well, I mean, fun is about all you're going to have with Desmond Watson.
Yeah, I mean, the fun part of we're talking about Desmond Watson is maybe the potential to put him at fullback, having him lead block or give him the ball at fullback down by the goal line. Good luck tackling that monster. He's strong as they come, but the guy just can't move left or right past one step. And nose tackles in this day and age, there's no more Gilbert Browns. There's no more of these kind of guys that have to operate in the phone booth. And that as long as they dominate in the phone booth, you're fine with that. You don't need them to rush the passer. You don't need them to get in space to the outside zone runs. But with Watson, unfortunately, he's just not going to be able to do that type of stuff.
Yeah, he's got to go to an NFC East team so he can stop the tush push. That's his goal in life.
There you go. He's the tush push. What would be his nickname? The tush push.
The inverse tush push.
What's the opposite of push?
Yeah.
The tush stopper.
Yeah, there's got to be something there, man. The NFC East teams just got to keep trading him back and forth all season. So
the tush pounder.
I like it. Yeah, there's something there, man.
There's a fun nickname in there for him. You might be onto something there. That'd be the way to stop it, man. You ain't moving that thing off the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, have fun with that. Yeah, other than that, he's kind of a throwback to a player from the 1920s when everybody just ran the ball and we hadn't even discovered the forward pass yet.
Yeah, he'd be dominating if that was still the case.
Right. So, yeah, he is fun to talk about, but he would not be very fun to have on your defense.
No, unfortunately not. He's going to, if he does get taken by the NFL teams, the first thing you're going to do is probably put him on the Jenny Craig weight loss program and have him try to cut out about 75 pounds off that build.
Yeah, it'd be like if you had a basketball player who just stayed on one side of the court because he was so out of shape, he couldn't go back and forth. So you just had him cherry pick and you would go 4 players defensively every time.
That's right.
It'd be like, this isn't basketball. What the hell is this?
He's just standing there out of breath, but not moving.
I'm open. God, I just thought of that the basketball scene in American History X with the really fat guy.
Oh yeah,
who won't run the court.
It's exactly that, man. It's exactly
that. Exactly.
Hit me.
I'm open. But yeah, it's shout out to Desmond Watson. He's fun to have around, but I don't think that it's going to amount to anything. And there's no way he gets drafted, right? He's projected to be not even a top 500 prospect. There's just no way.
Yep, just these type of nose tackles don't fit anymore in the sport. You'll get probably UDFA'd, but he's got to lose a lot of weight.
Yeah. Okay. Just 3 more guys here, and again, we're probably going to go through this pretty quickly unless there's something here that you're into. First guy is Luke Lachey of
Lachey.
Iowa.
Lachey? I don't know.
Yeah, I just think of the swimmer guy, Ryan Lochte, and I always go with Lochte, even though it's spelled completely differently here. Whatever. Pretty good size for a tight end overall. Athletic combine numbers were good. Aggregate puts him as a late 6th, early 7th round pick. Iowa does have a little bit of a reputation for producing these good tight ends. Does Lachey have a chance to be the next one?
I don't think so. No, he has a taller H-back. He does have some really good change of direction for being a 6'6" guy. You don't usually see that on those guys. That helps him out being a real good route runner, and that change of direction really factors in there. Just not sudden as a prospect, slow out of his stance, some burst, but average speed. Good catcher in traffic. He'll extend for the catch, but does use his body to basket catch when he can. So it's not always consistent in making those hands catches. That get him a little bit of trouble, I think, as far as consistency with his hands. Power and strength are missing from his game, so not your typical Iowa tight end as far as blocking goes at all. Especially shows up in the run game where he is willing and actually technically pretty good, but just gets tossed around due to those light hands. Crack back blocks, pull and pin are where he's at his best in the blocking department. So there are some good, certain specific type of blocks that he does work well with. He can be roughed up on running his routes, I think. So it's where physicality and coverage can give him some issues big time. It doesn't give you anything as a yak. Older prospects and injuries are a concern. Those last three things especially really, dinged him down my board.
Yeah. I do think he's got the making of someone who can at least play in line somewhat. He's got a big catch radius, pretty good blocking in space, not so much as a blocker in line necessarily. Plays through contact, pretty decent route runner, but I don't think he's going to be great in any area. I don't think there's any area where he's going to really stand out. Doesn't have the agility to really break open from man coverage. And it's so hard to judge some of these Iowa tight ends because Iowa doesn't throw the ball enough. So it's hard. So I went 6th rounder. I can't really go higher than that. Nothing really stood out to me that much, but I'd go 6th rounder.
Yep. Same as where I'm at.
CJ Dupree or I don't. These ones are really throwing me for a loop. But CJ Dupree of Alabama, pretty good size for a tight end. Pretty good testing numbers as well, actually. I think he kind of surprised people with how well he tested. Nevertheless, still considered to be a 7th round pick on the aggregate. What do you see with Mr. Dupree?
Traditional size tight end, traditional movements for the position, traditional play. He played both Maryland and Alabama. Maryland used him a little bit more as a pass catcher and let him go out there in space and show off what he could do with that. At Alabama, they basically just turned him into a blocker, both in pass pro and as a run blocker. Even when he was making catches, it was a lot of times starting out first blocking and then leaking out of the backfield to go make the catch. Good catch radius, sure hands, offers the occasional one-hander on top of it. Kind of gives you a lot of car crash kind of catches where he'll make the grab, but just it's a pile of bodies by the end of it. As a blocker, at the very least, he gets the early win. Like a lot of how he blocks, sustaining can sometimes be a chore in the blocking game, but there's also some mixture of some dominant crushing reps in there with some times where the guys are sliding off of him. Moving straight forward, he offers some burst, but he comes in a little extra stiff. That's that traditional movement stuff from the position where it's real stiff. The hips are going to be real stiff. If you got to ask him to change his direction when he's got to flip his hips, it's like a cruise ship turning in the harbor. So part of, I think, why Alabama didn't have him running as many of those routes and just kind of block, then leak out and we'll throw it to you in the flat. But does offer you some blocking ability, does give you some of the traditional looks. You compare both of the two tapes between Maryland and Alabama, and maybe feel like, well, Maryland, he did show us he could do some of this stuff. So we don't just look at him as this in a box kind of guy and what you can bring to the field. But he does give you some unique blocking ability versus other tight ends in this draft.
Yeah, I liked CJ a lot. He's very athletic. He should be big enough to play in line. I think he'll be a good blocker in zone. I think he's going to be able to hit block targets in space. Physical with the ball in his hands, can make contested catches. I don't think he has great hands yet. They're not terrible, but I don't think they're very good either. Doesn't always look as fast on the field as he is on the track. I feel like his speed doesn't fully translate. And Alabama's offense by nature just kind of makes life a little bit easier for a tight end, I think, in general. So really intriguing talent. I ended up going 5th round on him. I would not mind a 5th round pick on him. More of a late 5th rounder, but I liked him.
I'm an early 5th rounder myself on it, but 5th round, definitely.
All right. And the last guy I looked at, and this one's pretty far down, but he is, I believe, currently ranked a 7th round pick on the aggregate. Thomas Fidone, the second out of Nebraska. Pretty lean, 6'5", 243 pounds, but long arms and pretty good testing numbers too. Pretty explosive, pretty fast, pretty quick. Okay production last year for Nebraska, and Nebraska is not the most pass-happy team, so I think 380 receiving yards is actually pretty decent. I know you said you didn't really get a chance to look at Fidone that much.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Pretty good athlete, explosive, has some deep threat ability, got a full route tree, has some promise as a blocker. His long arms are pretty rare in this class as well, and he gives a lot of effort. He's just going to have to add weight. He's going to have to learn how to beat press better, which he should be able to do because he has long arms. And for a guy that is kind of tall and has longer arms, he doesn't win enough of his contested catch opportunities. Really should be a better contested catch guy. So I actually ended up liking Fidone a good amount. I'd say late 5th round would be fine by me, honestly.
Yeah, he looked functional. I watched a little bit of the tape on him. He is functional. I liked how he blocked. Is a former one of those high 5-star rated prospects coming out of high school. Knee injuries have been a bit of a problem, and that's where you're not sure about that, where the health standpoint is. He's carrying around that knee brace with him last year on the field. And there were times I felt like there wasn't maybe fully dragging the leg, but maybe not at 100% full health either, as there have been a couple of times he's had to deal with some injuries there on that. But good size to him, man. He's built right. Good wide build, good strong build, solid base to him.
All right. Yeah, I think that takes us home. We looked at every tight end that is expected to get drafted in my experience as of right now. And it's a good class, man. It beats last year. It beats most of the recent years, I would say.
We've had so many classes that have been really outright bad as far as tight end classes go. So it's really a breath of fresh air having so many guys that are both talented and also really unique in this one. It's made it a lot funner covering this tight end class. That's for sure.
Yeah, and there are a couple of names in the UDFA rankings that I think could end up being something. Guys that I've looked at before, guys like Caden Presscorn, Gavin Bartholomew, Bryson Nesbitt. These are all guys that are currently projected to be UDFAs that we've talked about a little bit before. There's a little something there.
Yeah, I don't think those guys will do much at the next level. I think they potentially do, but I think they're all kind of back end day guys.
Mm-hmm. And apparently the Seahawks are meeting with this one tight end. I think his name is G. Scott Jr., who is supposed to be a fullback at the NFL. And he's like one of the most athletic fullbacks ever, if he's a fullback. I don't know if you've heard about this at all, but it actually sounded pretty interesting to me.
Yeah, it's G. Scott's kid. And so, G. Scott, right?
Yeah, he's the guy who's on X, right? He's the Seahawks guy on X. I've seen him before.
So former 5-star guy. He was a receiver in Washington. So a local kid out of Washington too, former wide receiver that went to Ohio State. And then he got stacked behind the wide receiver depth chart there, as just about anybody would when you have Olave and Wilson and Jackson Smith-Njigba and Emeka Egbuka and Jeremiah Smith. So he transitioned to tight end late in his career there at Ohio State. So a guy that, maybe you could move to fullback, but, didn't light the world on fire as a tight end necessarily, did fine. In that way, but would definitely give you about the most athletic fullback you could find if he's gone from wide receiver to there here in just that 4-year span.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to look at him, but I did know that the Seahawks were looking at him, so I thought I'd go ahead and mention that. And yeah, that takes us home. So I think we're good, man.
Let's go. Well, yeah, fun class. I expect us to come away with one of these guys somewhere, Brendan, in this draft. I think you're going to take a tight end somewhere.
Yeah.
So
I know I want one. I don't know if we're going to get one, but I know I want one. I'll say that much.
I do too. I'd be stoked with a lot of these different guys, and even on not being as hot to a guy like Loveland, for instance, I still can recognize his talent, and he still would be a fun player to watch. That's for sure.
Okay, so tomorrow we're going to take a look at wide receiver. I think that's a position that there's certainly more receivers than tight ends in any draft class. And I think there's also going to be a bigger pull for Seahawks fans to desire receivers out of this draft. We're going to need them, and we're going to need them very soon here. So that is the plan. Thank you, everybody, for coming out today. Brandon, thank you for doing this with me. Had a lot of fun.
Appreciate it. Me too.
And yeah, so we're 15 days away from the draft, 15 days away from figuring out where this goes. It's a big draft. We have to hit it. We've, in many ways, decided to part ways with some significant pieces of the last Seahawks team in order to build up draft capital for this draft. So we got to make good on it. If we don't make good on it, then it's going to sting double. It's going to sting double because of what you lost to get it, and it's going to sting because of the simple fact that you miss on your picks. So we'll be doing this again in less than 24 hours. See you guys soon. And don't forget, especially right now, because the team needs it more than ever, go Hawks.
Go Hawks.